Hey, hi everyone. I hope you all are doing good. So, in my today's session, I'm going to explain about one more creational design pattern called Fluent interface. Okay, so let's start with it. Okay, so what it is. So, in software engineering, a Fluent interface is an object-oriented API whose design relies extensively on method chaining. Its goal is to increase code legibility by creating a domain-specific language. The term was coined in 2005 by Eric Evans and Martin Fowler. Okay, so basically, the crux of Fluent interface design pattern is method chaining. Okay, and the goal is to create a legibility. Okay, you have to create a code legibility in such a way that you should end up in creating a domain specific language. Okay, so what it is, I'm going to explain in few minutes. Okay, so let's go to implementation. How we can implement this? Yeah, a Fluent interface is normally implemented by using method chaining to implement method cascading. Okay, in languages that do not natively support cascading. Okay, so we have to do that. We have to achieve method cascading by implementing the method chaining pattern here, basically. Okay, so concretely by having each method returning the object to which it is attached. In our case, in object oriented terminology, it is this, the object, the self object. Okay, often referred to as this or self. Stated more abstractly, a Fluent interface relays the instruction context of a subsequent call in method chaining, where generally the context is defined through the return value of a called method, self-referential, where the new context is equivalent to the last context, terminated through the return of a void context. So if you are returning a method in this method chaining, when a method returns a void means, I think till that point, I think your Fluent interface calls are over, basically. Okay, note that a Fluent interface means more than just method cascading via chaining. Okay, it entails designing an interface that reads like a DSL. Okay, so Fluent interface is not just method chaining, guys. It is more than method cascading via chaining, and it also entails and it should constitute that you are designing an interface in such a way that it should read like a domain specific language. Okay, so let's go through an example now, then I will explain when to use this pattern and what are the problems. Okay, so let's start with a simple example. Okay, so C sharp programming language extensively uses Fluent interfaces pattern in their LINQ, language integrated query. Okay, one such example I would like to show you. I'm not going to create any abstract type or nothing, just using a built-in type called dictionary, which is available in system.collections. I will show you how they have provided or how they have implemented this Fluent interface design pattern. Okay, so I'm creating a simple dictionary which basically gives me a translation. Something like for cat, I'm giving chat, dog, some value, fish, poisson, something like that. Okay, so for key, the value is a translation. Now, I come up with a problem statement, find translations for English words containing the letter A, sort them by length and display in uppercase. Okay, so how I will write a LINQ query. Okay, see how simple it is in LINQ. Okay, I think that is the power of C sharp programming language and very and mostly loved feature by most of the development community, guys. Okay, so if you see this particular query now, so there is no need to put inumerable or string. Even if you just put var, that is more than enough. Okay, so var query equal to translations dot where. Can you see the method chaining? Translations is my dictionary. Okay, translations dot where is a method coming from system dot linq. Okay, namespace. Okay, and it is an extension method. Okay, so translations dot where t gives, if t dot key contains a as per the problem statement, then dot order by. Okay, see first when you called translations dot where, basically it applied this where condition on the elements of this translations collection or a dictionary. Okay, then it returned one more collection here. Okay, then on that collection again I'm applying dot order by. Okay, t gives t dot value by length, I'm ordering it by length. Then once ordering it by length, again I'm calling a dot select, and then when returning those values, I'm turning them into a uppercase. Okay, then I am calling to list. Okay, so this is the beauty of Fluent interface design pattern or Fluent interfaces. Okay, basically you are not required to construct a query progressively. The same example I have shown you over here. See, this is called constructive query. Sorry, this is constructing the query progressively or in a step-by-step manner. See how it is going on. Translations dot where t dot key contains a. See, it's a collection now. Okay, it's a collection of key value pair. Okay, then second, after on that filtering, what I'm doing, I'm ordering t dot value dot length. I'm ordering the value by length. Again, it returns a collection. I ordered enumerable of key value pair string comma string. Okay, key string value string. Then final query where I'm basically again applying the select operation on my sorted collection. Okay, see sorted dot select t gives t dot value to uppercase, and then finally I will get a enumerable of string which contains a list of uppercase string values or translations which contains whose key contain character a. So in this case it should return me this value in uppercase. Okay, so this is the advantage of Fluent interfaces, and C Sharp extensively make use of that in their language integrated query feature, which is align queue. Okay guys, so that is a built-in library side. I provided an example. Okay, now I will show you how to create our custom Fluent interfaces. Okay, so for the time being, what I will do, let's get rid of this. Yeah, so look at the way I have implemented this Fluent interface. Okay, when we implement a Fluent interface, right, first we should have one context. Okay, in order to set the properties of that context, you will basically make use of a Fluent interface. Okay, so in my case, I have a context called employee context, which has first name, last name, sex, and address. Okay, now how will I initialize or construct this context? Okay, that is by making use of a Fluent interface, and in my case, that Fluent interface is employee. Okay, see, very simple. These are all pocos basically. Okay, the plain old C sharp classes only, but the way the pattern applied, just have a look at that. Okay, so public class employee, and I have an object member which is of type my employee context over here. So whenever you apply a new operator, this underscore context will be constructed automatically. Okay, so private employee context equal to new employee context. Okay, now I have my employee context with me. Okay, so now have a look at these methods. Okay, set the value for properties. Okay, now how will I set the values for property in traditional or in conventional C sharp programming? We basically use this approach, right? Context dot first name, okay, equal to first name. The same thing I'm going to use here, but I'm doing it on the context. Okay, so underscore context dot first name equal to whatever value I passed, that will be setting here. And look at this statement. I'm not i'm not returning a void here. Instead, I'm returning the employee itself. Okay, so same thing applies for the last name. Set the last name, again return the employee itself, so that you will be able to call other methods of this class or a Fluent interface, which will constitute a method chaining. Okay, so first name, last name, again other attributes, address, and I'm returning this. And finally, how will I conclude? The construction process is over. Okay, the moment I call this print method, which returns a void, which constitutes the end of this method chaining, and this Fluent interface will give the results. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm simply rendering the context's property values. Okay, so let's go to main program. See how simple it is. For employee equal to new employee, and then look at the way I'm constructing this object. Okay, or initializing this object. Okay, employee first name Ram, last name Suryavamshi, sex he is a male. Okay, and address Ayodhya. Look at the beauty of this Fluent interface, guys. Okay, it's like a domain specific language. Okay, it's a kind of business language. Even a non-technical person who don't have any programming experience, even if he goes through this line, right guys, it's very easier for him to understand the things what's going on. Okay, so he will very easily understand that, okay, there is an employee by first name Ram, last name Suryavamshi, and address by Ayodhya, and then I'm printing his details. So that's the beauty of Fluent interfaces. Okay, so let me run the program quickly. So I have run the program. See how nicely it run. Okay, see, and also when I call the print, it printed all the details properly over here. Okay, so this is all about Fluent interfaces. The most important thing is all about the way you basically construct and initialize your object. It is like a domain specific language. Okay, so it's like a business language where you basically specify how you are constructing your objects and initializing them. Okay, so this is what I wanted to explain here regarding yeah, the Fluent interface design pattern. Okay, so if you want, you can bring them on new lines also. Okay, like this, and see how easily you are basically constructing an object. Okay, no need to use the employee object again and again and again, like employee dot first name, employee dot last name equal to some value, and again employee dot address equal to some value. No, just employee object first name, pass first name, last name, pass last name. So okay, so context wise you pass your value and call that method. So step by step process, and finally when you call print, it's done, it's ready. Okay, so that's all about this pattern. So let's go through this particular design patterns advantages and disadvantages. Okay, okay, when do we need to use Fluent interface design pattern? Okay, one such scenario is, guys, during unit testing when the developers are not full-fledged programmers. Okay, or you can say they have very little knowledge on the programming constructs or programming languages or programming features. In such cases, no, using this kind of design pattern where you are basically constructing an object in a language, a simple natural language manner. Okay, like the way we did employee dot first name, name, last name, name, address, some address, like that. So it will basically help these non full-fledged programmers to understand the system and write the unit tests. Okay, so when you want your code to be readable by non-programmers so that they can understand whether the code is satisfied with the business requirements or not. Okay. Suppose if a QA team member also goes through your code, right, or at least unit test level. So by this approach, right, he will very easily understand whether my code, whatever code I have implemented, is it matching with the business requirements or not. And if you are a component seller and you want to stand out in the market as compared to others by making your interface simpler, okay, if you are basically creating a libraries, if you are creating new libraries and you are selling to outside companies, then making use of this kind of simple interfaces will help you a lot. Okay, now what are the problems with Fluent interface design? Now, errors cannot be captured at compile time. Okay, so what does this mean? In typed languages, using a constructor requiring all parameters will fail at compilation time itself if you are missing any of the constructor parameter. Okay, so you would have seen in Java or C sharp. Okay, if a constructor accepts 5 parameters and if you pass 4, you will immediately get a red line, that is compile time error itself, that you are missing a parameter. Okay, so but with the Fluent approach, okay, you will only able to see such errors at the runtime, because whatever value you are passing, because whatever object you are constructing, it's basically in a manner of method chaining, that is step by step process. Okay, so suppose you provided you called first two methods like first name, last name. Okay, you provided right values which matched or which valid which is right against your business validation. So in that case, those two methods succeeded. But while setting address, okay, while setting address or designation, if you made some error, then you will come to know that this value is wrong, and the error can be caught only at the runtime itself. Okay, you can't find such errors at the compile time. So that's what they say. uh, yeah, while the Fluent approach will only be able to generate runtime errors, missing all the type safety checks of modern compilers, which I already said in terms of Java and C sharp. Okay, and also it contradicts the fail fast approach for error protection. Okay, so in case of C sharp or Java, if something is wrong, it will fail immediately so that it won't go further during the execution chain. But here that won't happen. Okay, you will come to know at the runtime itself what went wrong. Debugging and error reporting. Single line chained statements may be more difficult to debug as debuggers may not be able to set breakpoints within the chain. Okay. So if you take example of this, right? Okay, if I put it into a single line here, okay. So if I put a breakpoint over here, so usually what happens when I press F10, it will execute this entire line at once. Okay, so if you want to debug, right, you have to keep on pressing F12, okay, in order to debug each and every method. And sometimes it will be very difficult also because the breakpoint will be hitting at the same line, but the context will be different. The debugging context will be different whenever it hits each and every method. So this is not a convenient way when it comes to debugging your source code. Okay. Then comes logging. Adding logging into the middle of a chain of Fluent calls can be an issue. Yes, I agree. Basically, suppose this is my custom class which I implemented. Okay, so if I want to implement a logging functionality, right, using a extension method, okay, using a extension method which is available in C sharp, okay, I can basically supply extension method to last name or address or to first name which can accept a logger and which can log some messages, warnings, information or errors. Okay, but if you are dealing with a built-in methods, okay, like built-in classes, in that case it is very difficult to apply logging in between. Okay, so even if you want to achieve that kind of logging functionality, you have to write a extension method. I'm telling in terms of C sharp because C sharp has a powerful feature of extension methods using which you can provide your custom methods to a built-in class. Okay, like for string, okay, for memory stream, you can provide your own method which can be attached to your built-in classes. Okay, so that can be done, but again this is an issue when it comes to logging. Okay. Subclasses. Inheritance. When it comes to inheritance, subclasses in strongly typed languages like C++, Java, or C Sharp often have to override all methods from their superclass that participate in a Fluent interface in order to change their return type. Okay, so let me show you what will happen if I create a new class which inherits from employee. Okay, then I have to take a little care for all these methods. Okay, so they should I have to override them in such a way that they should return basically the derived type object, not the base class object. Okay, so that is thing we have to take care of. Okay, so these are the some issues which are associated with this pattern, but overall this pattern is very extensively used in most of the programming frameworks and even in business applications also, in order to make the application design pretty simpler and domain specific. Okay, so that is all about Fluent interface design pattern. Thank you for listening guys, and yeah, have a nice day.